Hi Brian, back again, another segment number 3. We'll talk here about the practical takeaways, we'll say, for the coachee and those who are working with the coach, okay? And really, I know that we've discussed this an awful lot in the professional diploma that we run as part of the MBA cohort as well, about the importance of drilling down to get to the core of the issue, you know, and that's sometimes not easy to do. If you get a traumatized employee, that maybe don't fully understand the issues they're having, don't fully understand why they're not happy, or fully understand the relationship they might have with their immediate line manager, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And you as the coach, business coach, it's really important for you to think it through, this reflective thing we talked a little bit about in the first segment, you know. And so the 3 questions then, you know, we've discussed this before, and I think this developed from the work that we did together on Toyota, you know. We did the 5 whys, you know, why, and you get to the end of them and you'll find out hopefully what the real problem is. So it's getting to the root of the problem, isn't it, in the Toyota way. So can I just throw that back to you now, Brian? You often talked about 3 questions that every leader, all right, but this could also be what the coach could ask, right? The 3 questions they should always ask themselves.
Indeed, and I suppose the most prevalent one is, what am I not seeing? You know, and that can be something for the coach to ask, but also something for the coachee. What are they not seeing about themselves? Yeah. Sorry?
Especially if they're a leader, Brian.
Oh, especially if they're a leader, yeah. Absolutely. And it's, I suppose, to prompt a perspective shifting.
Perspective, yeah.
Yeah, within the individual, the coachee as such, to get them to look at things differently. A quote I came across years ago was, when we look at things differently, the things we look at are different. It took me a couple of months to actually get the full understanding of that, but when I did, I could see it.
That's very cool, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, because I say, you know, there's a positive in everything, and there is, you know, and sometimes in terms of leadership, you might be holding something back or something you're afraid of or whatever, if it comes out, whatever, but then when you're straight with people, you know, and let them know, because you have to have that demeanor, you know, of being calm, etc., and that in your leaders in your leadership. So when they reflect on themselves, they can. And something I come across quite a lot when I go into organizations sometimes is that the owner or a director or this person's boss thinks, oh well, they're very open with me, Brian, and I say, are they really? Yeah. You know, whatever, and you go in, and when you build up the trust that a coach has to build up with a coachee, but they start telling you things, you know, that the boss would never know, and obviously it's in confidence. Everything is always in confidence, you know. And it leads into another question is, you know, what would success look like if I removed all the current constraints? Now, one of the things that people don't realise is that something like about 84% of the constraints are actually internal. They're within ourselves, you know, and it's just to let go and get that out and get people to reflect and look at these things. And we're not asking them to give away their most intimate secrets or whatever, but it's just to discover what it is that's holding them back. And I said to people to think on paper, and when they start to write on paper, they can see things a lot clearer. You know, and of course there are conversations that they can avoid as well, you know, and I suppose that comes down with a bit of if there was conflict, for instance, in a conversation that they're avoiding, you know, where you know, a manager avoids conflict but a leader uses conflict. And what I mean by that is that a leader will use conflict in a positive way to actually, right, let's sort this out. We know there's an elephant in the room, or however it is phrased. And I think that, you know, again, and I can never emphasize this enough, is it's very reflective stuff, but also from the coach's point of view, you have to be very careful how you gently prod, you know, because don't try and force someone to tell you something that you might have a feeling about or think you know or whatever, because you're building up respect. And you have to have that respect before they will trust you, and when they trust you then, and they need to feel confident, and you need to feel confident and comfortable as well.
Yeah, I'm just, to me, as you were talking there, I was thinking about the applicability of these questions, from the point of view of the leader themselves or whoever the manager might be, but definitely from the coach's point of view, because you are still trying to disaggregate the issue, and sometimes, the coachee isn't that eloquent to give you the answers back, So you're peeling away the layers, and drilling down. And it kind of looks at the 3 stages, and correct me if I'm wrong. The first stage is, first of all, you've got to the point and you thought you've got into the head of the coachee, and then you say, look, what bit of this am I not seeing,
Yes.
What's hidden? So this is kind of taking us to another level of coaching, where you first of all establish with them that there is something that you're not getting right, and it's now time to open up. So the next stage then is you then try to figure out what those blockages are, and then say, well, if we can take these blockages and disaggregate them, put them out there, and remove them one by one, if all these constraints are removed, and this could be a relationship with a line manager, for example.
Indeed,
it could be that,
yes.
Right? Where they feel bullied, or maybe they feel that they're not being appreciated, or maybe they feel that there's a conversation, or there's some kind of information mismatch, or they don't speak the same, not saying language, yes, the same language, but even speaking English, you don't speak the same language, right? In terms of not fully understanding what they need to do and not fully explain the reasons. Maybe there's that kind of
and I find in my experience, it is exactly, that's what I was going to say, a communication issue. And it is a communication, and people do need to speak the other person's language when they are communicating with them. I mean, like as Winston Churchill said, the English and the Americans are separated by a common language. I mean, I find that even in Australia, in how I would express certain things. For instance, when it comes to a very simple one, a car park. So we'd say here there's 20 spaces in the car park, whereas in Australia you would say there are 20 car parks. And you have to be clear in the language of your audience and of the coachee. And this is really important. And the thing about it is that I have found on the practical side of it that people have constraints that they don't actually realise are there. And if they're not coming forward and telling you things, the worst thing a coach can do is to keep prodding. And so to keep prodding, they're going to bottle up. However, you can make something subtle maybe 10 minutes later, or get them to think about something. Sometimes I actually give coachees a little piece of homework to do, or I might send them something to read. And it's amazing then the next session you have with them, which may be 2 to 4 weeks later, to sit down and within 5 minutes they're telling you everything that you were wondering about, to just open up.
I think that's definitely like a scenario building, where you're trying to get the various scenarios across and get them to elucidate and understand it. But then, of course, you hit when you finally get to the root of the problem. You get them to identify then what's the conversation that I'm avoiding that could fix all this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't write a script for it because every person is different. But in the diploma that we teach participants, how to, craft and sequence such questions to try and gain the maximum. Now remember, you're not getting the maximum for you as the coach, you're getting the maximum for the coachee. You're helping them in a non-judgmental way.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Now, this segment 3 that we have been discussing is very much about, I suppose, listening, lessons in listening, yeah. Absolutely. And that's something that if I remember correctly, that's a whole lecture that you give on the art of listening, isn't it?
It is, yes, absolutely. So, and active listening, and I see sometimes, when I read a CV where someone has put on it active listener, because I do some interviews for some of my clients, an active listener, and I say, well, enlighten me, explain what it is. Most people who put it down, they don't actually understand what it is. And just while we're talking about a question I ask sometimes when I read a CV and the applicant comes in and sits down for an interview, and I say, okay, so what's not on your CV that you might have put on it? And then I'll follow up with, well, what's in here that might not be in here? And I'm looking for the reaction, their body language and everything else. And it's no different in executive coaching, because the coach needs to be aware of the body language of the answers that are coming through. Are they congruent with their body language? And how is the tone of voice? So important. And that, again, is something that we teach.
Listening, as we've kind of talked about it here in some respects, and trying to get down to the root problem that a worker or employee might have. And very often it's down to the listening to, open your ears, so to speak, and decode the information and the instructions that's coming to you in the correct way. And I've seen the examples that we've used in class about how you can become a better listener and therefore become a better performer. Absolutely. As you often said, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? Use them in that ratio, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, Brian, that's a great way to finish, isn't it?
It is indeed. It is indeed, Vincent, yes.
And I'll see you back for the next session.